All right, this is the Surviving Business Show. I'm Winston, and that's David. Hope you guys are doing well today. We are so excited to talk to you about the topics we have today. But also remember, if you have a business, chime in, let us know what's going on with you. Tell us what is your biggest business challenge that you're going through right now, and we will answer it right now in this conversation today. So this is a great benefit for all of those of you who join us live and who want to chat with us today. So today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to talk about a couple of topics like we traditionally do, but I wanted to make sure that we had a sense and stopping and taking a moment to take a breath. So we've talked about great topics here, Dave, over the last few episodes. Things like shopping malls and movie theaters and video game stores, and we also talked about Tesla versus you know the rest of America as far as electric cars are concerned. We've had a great bit of phenomenal topics so far. So please go into the channel and check those out. Subscribe, like, hit us with comments. Hit us with comments about what you thought of those and what you'd like to see, what you'd like to see us do. So Dave, welcome. Dave is my brother, and this is also not an opportunity for us to do a Surviving Business Show, but for us to chat about what's going on with him. So yeah. What's going on with you?
Not much, just hoping to wrap up this school year.
Yeah. So Dave is an educator as well as a student at the same time.
Yeah. Yep. So hoping to wrap up both of them. Looking forward to summer school, and education. That's what I do. I learn. Life is a forever learning environment. Whenever you stop learning, that means you've stopped living. And that's part of the reason why we're here, because we want to make sure that you're learning as well as we're learning, and we're all critically thinking about some topics. So
that's right. Yes, right. I tell you, one of the biggest bits of advice that we would both give you as a business owner or a potential business owner is never stop learning. If you're one of those people who say, "Oh, I figured it all out. I heard everything I needed to hear in high school," that's almost like putting a pause on your life. Yep. And so you've got to make sure that you are learning all of the time.
Yeah. I saw a young lady that posted, she was like, "Yeah, I'm so proud of my mother who followed her dreams and finally became a doctor at the age of 55. And I was like, finally. I was like, she became a doctor. It doesn't matter what age. Like, I didn't know that becoming a doctor at a specific age meant that you worked hard, that it was an anomaly. Like, people are becoming doctors when they're 90, that's a lifetime achievement.
Yeah, I feel that in a personal way, because as a person who's gotten a bit older, I hear it all of the time. Like, what do you mean you're writing a play? What do you mean you're doing a screenplay? What do you mean you're acting? What do you mean you got this going on? Shouldn't you just be going in and just waiting for the time to count down? Like, well, yo, why don't you just chill and relax and don't do nothing? I was like, that's what I do. I love to keep learning and keep growing.
That's basically what they're saying. A lot of folks tell me, like, yeah, well, now that you're a teacher, you can look forward to retirement, right? And I'm like, well, it's still like 20 years off, whatever. But I'm the person who, even when I was young and they'd be like, yeah, you got to save for retirement. I was like, yeah, I see saving for older age. I'm going to put away 401k and do all those right steps. But retirement, I don't know what retirement really looks like for me. I don't see me like chilling out, watching TV all day,
The thought of that like hurts my stomach.
Yeah.
Like, if that would be the retirement where I'm just sitting around watching stuff go by, oh my gosh, every time I hear that, I tell you, I get a knot.
Yeah.
My retirement is doing what you're doing, but doing it in hopefully in like a university setting. And that's to me is retirement. I get out and I find my way to mosey over or walk over to the classroom, and then I talk to students about all the stuff that I've learned in the past, hopefully helping their lives to get better. That is retirement to me.
Yeah.
Anything else is not.
Yeah, I think I plan on doing that at the collegiate level also, and then also doing a little bit of travel. I could see me hitting all those places that I've always wanted to go. I've done a lot of traveling so far, but there's always more to do.
Yeah, you've done much more traveling than me, which I'm envious of in a good way, because then it makes me want to go out and check out those places you've been to. Yeah, I think you've been to all of the continents in the world for the most part.
No, I have not been to Australia.
Ha! I got you there. I'm on
Yeah,
that
no.
one.
No. Nor have I been to nor have I been to Antarctica. So
Yeah, I don't think I'm in a rush for that one.
yeah. I mean, I can see me doing like something to Alaska, but I don't see me going to Antarctica. I don't know what's there for me to go to. Maybe if I'm looking for Superman's castle, Crystal Castle, that would be the only thing. But I'd have to have superpowers.
You're making me show my nerd card, because that's the Fortress of Solitude you're talking about.
There you go.
So for those of you out there, let's turn it over to our business corner where we talk about business for today. So let's get that part going. So I think we may have talked about this before, David, but I really want to make sure that it gets connected with the people who listen to this, whether it's now or later. And that is really around the key importance of marketing, especially these days, and really understanding what your marketing goal, plan, position is. I had this idea to find it, and maybe I will while you give your comments. But when I went to business school over a decade ago, they gave me this book by Michael Porter called "The 5 Competitive Forces of Marketing."
Yep.
And it was a really unbelievably powerful book. I think they probably still share that at the business level.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, this is the primer or the primer on marketing going forward. But I will say that since then and now, marketing has been put on its head a little bit when it comes to technology. You know, when you think about all of the ways that people can connect or they can do their marketing now, I don't know when that was being drafted. Did anyone ever think about Instagram or TikTok, or that wasn't even a glimmer in anyone's eye? But those kind of platforms have changed marketing, in my opinion, quite a bit. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so when I went to grad school, more like 5 years ago. Yeah, they still cover Michael Porter,
Okay.
and I think they always will, because the 5 forces will always be something that, and of course we're not going to go into the 5 forces because we're not going to teach you a course in Michael Porter, because we could sit here for 2 hours and speak about the 5 forces of competitive business, or speak even longer. But the 5 forces is always going to be relevant, right? Because you're always going to have those people that are exterior. You're going to have your interior problems. You're going to have, the things that are important to your business. So, something that's more familiar to most people is a SWOT analysis, which, finds its way into these 5 forces also. So if you don't know what a SWOT analysis is, that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, right? So it's kind of like you do this diagram and you kind of like take a look at your business and figure out where do you really fit, right? So looking at where you fit is great, but when we start thinking about marketing goes to a whole nother level, right? So you go and you start thinking about who your consumers are, why are they buying from you, what have you set up to make your business special, and also how are you warding off other people from coming and doing exactly what you do, right? Is what you're doing just replicatable, right? Can somebody else just come and replicate it like in 2 seconds and say, all right, you were doing that, but now I'm doing it and I'm doing it better? And if they are, how are you prepared to compete with them? Right. So marketing takes on a lot of different phases, right? Some people think of marketing as just having the website or just going to Instagram and doing this, right? But it kind of takes on a big part of your business itself, right? Marketing goes from everything from the product that you decide that you want to create, how it's developed, right? And then how are you going to distribute it, right? What is your sale price going to be? What are you selling it for versus what your competitors are selling it for? Why do people want to pay that to you? You know, who's that particular segment that you're selling it to? There are a lot of questions you got to ask when you start thinking about marketing. But the number one thing is going to be, where is your money going to come from, right? And if you can't answer where the money's going to come from, you better think long and hard, right? Because where the money's coming from is going to make you know exactly where you need to go with this whole marketing plan.
Wouldn't you think that these platforms, these technological platforms, have upended the cost on some level, not 100%, because you still need a plan, because you do need to promote even on those platforms. So you do need a budget for that. But there's been this thought process, at least from the young people that I interact with, around they've got all of these things like how to beat an algorithm and all of that in order to make sure that they get that out. Wouldn't you think that that's having an effect on the overall cost? Like the cost isn't what it was 5-10 years ago, based on all this.
So yeah, the cost isn't the same. People don't have to use print media, right? So print media is dying out. That was one of the hugest marketing forces that was out, right? Billboards are still highly in demand in high traffic areas, right? But you know, when we think about the internet and how the internet was this leveling, you know, this leveler of the playing field, we, you know, since 2000, it's been like that, right? Since e-commerce first started and someone first created, you know, when AOL first started getting their 1 million subscribers and people were logging on to AOL every day and they were able to do this little banner that went across that said like, boom, this is what you need to buy, you know, it kind of changed things. So today, when we look in the Facebooks of the world and the Instagrams of the world, and now a new player in this is going to be Apple, because Apple's trying to figure out how can they start to market stuff. And like a very interesting thing that's just happened with Apple. I don't know for everyone who has their Apple devices, if you've realized, now you have the ability, and whenever you have a new app that you install that would be trying to use your information in order to sell you specific clients and do targeted marketing, you have to accept that, right? You have to say allow or you can disallow it, right? And what
I've heard from data that 90% of people, when they get that pop up, are opting out.
Exactly.
And that's on Facebook and all of the other social platforms. Yeah. The one thing I think that's curious about that is that I think you have to opt out on every device you have, right? Mm-hmm. So say you have an iPad and an iPhone as an example. I think if you opt out on your phone, it doesn't apply to your other device. And so that's something you got to think about. I think you're right, though. Apple is really trying to figure out how do they get in the marketing game. And the one thing I think that Facebook has done well is that Facebook has been really effective at surgically sharing with you stuff that you're interested in. And it's almost scary, right? Sometimes you just make a search on your computer, and next thing you know, you got a Facebook ad for the same thing.
Yep.
There's been times where I'm having a conversation with somebody, and I'm saying to myself, next time I turn on YouTube or something, there's an ad for the same thing. I was like, did one of these devices hear what I say? And now all of a sudden I'm get fed the ad for it.
Well, that's what happened when you have every speech device that you can have in your house. So you can't even figure out who's listening. You know, thank you to my wife who like plugged us in every single room. I have not bought one Echo device or Amazon Alexa device except for maybe like the Fire Stick. But still, we have something in every single room of the house. She's always coming home with a new one.
Well, here's an aside, and I know those of you who are listening, they're like, why are these guys going off on this tangent? But I know that when we want to exchange like a password for something, like there's a website that we want to go and say it's like the bank's website or something, we don't say it out loud to each other. We go back old-timey and we write it on a Post-it note and give it to each other and then put it in the password app because we don't know which speaker is listening to what. So we go old school in our own house and write down stuff.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. You got to watch what you're saying. I have a 4-year-old, and we're starting to learn the smooth task of having to watch what we say in front of her. But watching what you say in front of these devices is probably just as important. Not to freak everyone out and make you think that these devices do. Because these things are all driven off of algorithms. So if you decide that you want to do like a minor search on any, you on Google, you say, let me look up something. Amazon, you say, let me look at something. The cookies that are in your devices, they're reading like all of this stuff, and it's kind of scary, right? Because when we think about this hacking that just happened to this gas line, right? But and then you think about all of these things that are just like plugged into your computer and your devices that are able to get information. It's like, how easy is it for a hacker to be able to like just get into your stuff, right? If you got all this stuff, is just going to be able to just sit there and just search into your stuff. I do a search on Amazon for a mop, and then I'm in my Yahoo account and I'm getting ads for a mop. Why am I getting ads for a mop all of a sudden in Yahoo? Right? So yeah, it's interesting. But when we think about marketing, that's like how things are tied and knotted, right? And I had a customer, well, not a customer, but I have a client, and he's talking to me. He spent a ton of money using, some Yelp guy called him up maybe like 2 years ago when he signed up for a Yelp business account. And I was like, why did you do that? When he told me, I was like, why do you do that? Don't do that. Don't sign up for Yelp. Don't sign up for Yelp unless you got me looking over this, right? But he signed up for Yelp, and now he owes him like $2,000 something. They've never done anything for his business. And now, he's like, should I sign up for Google ads? And I'm like, well, number one, if you don't have a website, there's no reason for you to have Google ads. And number two, when you sign up for Google ads, you have to make sure that what you're getting from them is actually going to turn into business, right? It's not enough that you get your name out, right? Depending on what your business is. If you're just a promoter, right, and you just need people to know who you are, that's one thing. But if you're selling product or you're selling a service, you don't want to sell a product or sell a service and sign up for a Google, start paying Google money and start paying Facebook money to promote, and no one's, you're not getting business from it. So you just add an expense without revenue.
That's the downside of all of the technological ads, is that there are people out there that are ripping off other people. And I didn't want to say Yelp is ripping this guy off because I don't know him on that level. All I know is that you got to have a marketing plan, and that marketing plan in this example here, and I'm sure you shared with that guy, like, hey, you don't have a website, but if you're going to have a Yelp ad, you've got to have some ways that they can engage with you beyond just calling you or making a reservation or coming by. And so that is one of the things that I think people have to think about, this overall plan, because the plan is to attract, engage, and then get service or a product to them. But you've got to attract people. And it looks like he was trying to attract the people, and he might have got some slight engagement, but he probably didn't have an engagement plan associated with that. And that's why it all fell apart. He can't, in my opinion, I don't know enough about it, but I would say that he probably couldn't tell whether his results were good or bad. He just didn't see a lot of traffic. Well, but that wasn't the whole picture.
Well, generally speaking, I would say the difficulty with Yelp, right? There are ways for you to make Yelp work for you, right? So and I think that Yelp is kind of like had its heyday, and now it's kind of like past its heyday. So it's like, even for me to pay for Yelp now, I don't see Yelp as the go-to app for most people, unless you're like somewhere like in your mid 40s or something like that, and you still want to go and look in Yelp for reviews, because there's so many other sources for you to get those same reviews, right?
I
It's
don't, I don't know what Yelp's plan is, but they probably got that same plan or that same challenge with people opting out that other people have
yep.
and tracking that algorithm. I think they have that same thing. Quite frankly, a guy's thing about using Google may not be the worst idea. I know that some people I know use Google to way to search for products and services they want. So it might not be the most horrible thing ever.
Mm,
I know that Yelp is its own ecosystem though, and that's the biggest challenge.
yeah,
To your point, people use Google all the time.
yeah,
So
yeah. People use Google all the time, but the idea that what you pay for being on Google for you to get your little ad to pop up when they're looking for something else, it's number one, do you have the bandwidth, right? Are you bringing in the dollars? Do you really have the marketing dollars to attribute to that? Or are your marketing dollars spent better on local ads that eyes are going to get on, and it's going to be people that will probably be able to come into your facility? So, it's,
going back, yeah, I was gonna say, going back to your thought about plan, you can't do something like that as a one-time event.
yep.
But you got to have a real plan. So you can't say, "Hey, I put an ad in and no one responded." We human beings, we have to see something more than once in a lot of cases for us to be able to connect. It's sort of like what I tell my sales guys years ago. I was like, well, if you try to reach out to a client twice and you didn't get a hold of them, that does not mean that that client is not a potential client.
Mhm.
Or if they said, "Hey, call me back next week," and then you call them back and they say, "Hey, I'm still got to do this," that doesn't mean that sale is over. You got to do things 4 times, at least in the sales world, before you can really define the numbers. And I think that marketing is the same thing. You got to make sure you share what you're doing. And we're talking to everyone that's out there that's listening to us, but it's a plan that we've got to continue to work on, because we've got this channel and other channels, and even we've got to constantly revise that plan. But it can't be something you just say, "Yeah, I said it and forget it." Businesses are really two things: getting the money and making sure you're getting the clients. You got to do those. You got to do those two things. And so if you don't do those two things, they're kind of the chicken and the egg. They're a syndrome. They're a cycle. You can't get anybody if nobody knows what you're doing, and you can't get any more people if they don't know what you're doing. Inside of that is a whole bunch of steps in regards to great products and making sure that you're attracting it. You got a right price. Going back to the 5 competitive forces that we started off this conversation with.
Yep.
You could do all of that, but if your price doesn't match your clientele, so if you're trying to charge Tesla money for something and all of your clientele are Chevy clients, you're not going to get clients. So
Yeah.
you got to have a plan that connects the dots on those
Yeah.
things.
You have to connect the dots. Yeah. And then, you what my favorite force, if we were to speak about forces, my favorite force is always the external forces, right? What are those external pressures that are going to come on you, and how are you prepared for those, right? That's because that's the thing that keeps me up at night. That's the thing that would make me worry the most, right? What can happen to my business tomorrow because I didn't do something that was right? Whether it's a regulation, whether if it's someone coming out and just, opening up right across the street from me, and, I got a burger shop, they open up a burger shop across the street from me and their burgers are better than mine, right? It's those things that make me worry.
Yeah, especially these days, because I tell people a lot of times that back years ago, you could think about things in those broad Mad Men kind of way, where you would just make this big, broad campaign. But everybody's got to find their audience, got to find your clients. That is the hardest thing. Like, who are your people? Like, in your product and service, who are they? Like, how old are they? Where do they live? You know, what are their income ranges? You got to think about those kind of things. It can change. There's no doubt about it. These are not hard coded things, but you got to think about that, because you got to market to the people that are directly connected to that. Like, I live here in Atlanta, and it is unbelievably hard for people, friends of mine, to know what to do on a Saturday, because they got so much stuff coming at them. And they're like, "What do I do?" And then they pick this or they pick that. And I'm saying to myself, wow, if people know how to target to directly to them, it might make it easier, because we got so many inputs these days versus in the past where you only had like the TV and the newspaper
Yep.
as your input. Now you've got all of these different things coming at you.
Yep. and I would say, that's a very interesting thing, right? Because you live in Atlanta, I live in New York. Who has more things going on? We don't know, right? But what we do know is that when it comes down to marketing, a company I just invested a little bit of money in was Eventbrite, right?
Yeah, they're a good one.
Because I looked at it, I said, uh, these guys, they kind of got the control over every event that's happening outside of what Ticketmaster is doing, right? So if I want to throw a little shindig or whatever, and I want to make a little bit of money, I'm going straight to Eventbrite, right?
Right.
And they're going to get their little cut off of it, right? So they are the Ticketmaster for everybody. And we only are going to see more people doing more events and smaller events and different kinds of events. And where are they going to go? I don't think that they go to like a lot of these new up and starting companies. No, they go to Eventbrite because the system is so easy. People already on there. People are already able to go and sign up. It's a very simple process.
Yeah, I love them. I've been using them for many, many years. They are a great company to work with.
Yeah.
We're not giving you on the Survive and Business Show. We do not give you stock advice, but we can tell you our opinion. And in my opinion, this is good.
Yeah.
This price is good.
Yeah.
Because they're not going anywhere, and they're actually going to do some great things here in the very near future.
Yeah, I look at post pandemic, them just increasing their presence, and I wouldn't even be surprised if at some point, some of those things that are Ticketmaster or Telecharge that are strictly there, them being able to find a leg into their activities also.
Yeah, I think that they're great.
Which would
So let's talk about our business of the week that we want to chat about. So let's tee that up. So today, so today we're going to talk about a business that's near and dear to my heart, and I believe yours as well. In the blurb for this episode, I shared that Macy's was kind of the nexus of our family growing up. Like every time someone wanted to go somewhere and we wanted to meet someone, it was like the landmark that we met somewhere at. We said, "Meet me at Macy's." But I'll let you share kind of your view in regards to how you feel about Macy's as well. Like you're from the past. I know there's a lot of things you want to talk about how Macy's has been part of our family and the history. You are fantastic at that, Dave.
You already told the story.
I couldn't resist in this case here. I was trying to find. We've got pictures from Macy's that I'll talk about if you don't get to it.
So Macy's is interesting, right? Macy's is an American institution, right? It's been around. I didn't look at the history, but I know it predates the 40s or something like that, maybe 50s, 40s, if not before then. So when Winston speaks about us meeting up at Macy's, it wasn't at every Macy's. We didn't just say like, "Yo, meet me at the Macy's at Green Acres." No, that wasn't the meetup spot. That was if we were going to be in Manhattan. Where else do you meet but the Macy's at Herald Square, right? How did moms and aunties and whoever else we were meeting figure out exactly where in the store we was meeting? They'd be like, "Yo, meet us at the turnstile doors on the corner of so and so and so and so on this corner," because you got to remember, in the 80s. Not so much early, I guess maybe even late 70s, but in the 80s, there's no cell phone, right? There's no way for you to contact somebody when you get close. "Yo, call me when you get close by." No, you had to arrange exactly where you were going to be and where you're going to meet up with somebody before you got there. And then at that time was important. So it didn't matter if you were from the Caribbean or if you were just natural black folk, you know, it didn't matter. You said I'm gonna meet somebody there at 1:30. You need to be there by 1:45. Otherwise, it's like your whole meetup plans for the day may just go skew because people just may leave. There's no one waiting around forever and ever. Time was important and of essence. So Macy's has like a special place, I guess, you know, for us because our mother is like this deal hound, right? So she always wanted to get the best price, you know, and she worked in the fashion industry for our, you know, our whole lives. And being very close to Macy's, you know, and being close to like, you know, whatever else is over there, you know, sample sales was a regular thing for her. But Macy's, she was always able to get like these amazing bargains, right? So, you know, your mom come home, she's like, yeah, look what I just got these shirts for y'all, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you're never going to guess what I paid for it. And, you know, regardless of how low you tried to go, somehow she always still beat that low estimate that you did, right? Because you're like, all right, I'm going to say something reasonably low.
I think she was a great negotiator too. I don't know how she would negotiate, but Macy's is one of the few department stores I think that if you find the right person in there, you can actually do some negotiation.
Yeah.
And she was fantastic at that. I used to watch her work sometimes when she would come to Atlanta and she would go to the Macy's at Lenox Mall because no one's negotiating in Lenox Mall in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And so she would figure out the right guy to talk to. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, whatever the price was, it'd be like the guy would find a way to double coupon it or something like that. I was like, how do you do that? Yeah. And, you know, she just has that affable skill where she's just like, oh, hey. She smiles at everyone. And regardless of how she just, let me ask you a question. She just got this skill that's amazing.
Yeah, she walks in with like one coupon, but somehow she ends up getting a bargain for like 5 coupons. And, you know, it's like compounded. And then, you know, the item happened to be on clearance. And next thing you know, you're walking out and, you know, you didn't pay much. Now, what does that mean for Macy's business model? You know, is that great for the guy sitting at the top of Macy's to say like, okay, so we're letting them go merchandise at, you know, these very low prices? Yes, because you have Macy's survives based off of a couple of things, right? Foot traffic, right? And then, you know, the fact that they're moving out certain items that they really don't need to have in there anymore, right? Because you got to think it's a store. Right. So stores have limited space. And although Macy's are really big, they're always getting new stuff coming in. So when we think about the fashion industry itself, you know, how long is something in style? For a season, right? You know, I mean, of course it could be in style for several years, but the new stuff comes in seasonal. So when things come in, you got to move things out. So I would say,
so what do you think about I was going to say, what do you think about the pressures on them, though? When you think about Amazon and these like low price places, I forget what they're called, like Zara, and these things that ladies get over the internet, Nova something. Now, all these low price things that are putting pressures on retail stores. Your comment about foot traffic is the right one because that's how they survive. If you go in there and you get your coupon stuff, there's a good chance you got something else that ain't coupon.
Yep.
And they know that you're coming in there. I just know that they've got pressures from places that they didn't think of 5-10 years ago.
I mean, not to mention, you know, their markdowns are, you know, not always the markdown that is advertised, right? So you'd be like, yeah, I'm getting 50% off, but you really got like 20% off because they put it on sale. You know, they mark the price up before they put it back on sale and blah, blah, blah. But so to the outside pressures, you know, from the Zaras and, you know, all the factory stores that are opening up and Amazon's, you know, and the e-commerce and the small businesses. I think that Macy's, unlike a lot of their competitors, like the JCPenney's of the world, Sears, which is now out of business, they were smart in the way that they moved to e-commerce. And they built up their e-commerce platform to be quite robust. You still are able to get the same discounts as if you're in the store. You're still able to buy the same things that you could buy in the store. You're able...
And their return policy was great, right, on their e-commerce platform.
Yeah, and a return policy is the same. And a return policy they also, they do the smart thing, right? You can return it to our store, right? If you return it to the store, now you've walked in the store and there's a possibility that you're going to buy something when you walk into the store, right? But they've done a great job with with the e-commerce, and not to mention that they've linked the e-commerce delivery system to be also within their local businesses, right? So, a suit may be shipping from, the Macy's that's like right over here in Brooklyn, and I don't even realize it, right? I saw this suit, it was on sale. I said, let me get this suit. It's gonna ship from some store somewhere, or some warehouse that feeds to that store, so it comes pretty promptly. But yeah, I think the big mitigator for them in competing with a lot of those businesses was definitely their move to e-commerce. And I think that if there's something that they did get right, they got that right. They're also revamping a lot of their stores, right? So a lot of their stores that look old and outdated, they fix them up, they make them look better. I think we spoke about this other thing in one of our early episodes, how they like to sell their space now.
Yeah, the shopping malls episode where we talked about Macy's as a good example of people who've carved out spaces in their actual stores, let other people who are selling stuff like Foot Action or Starbucks or some of these others help pay some of the overhead of the actual location.
Yep.
And I was like, that is like brilliant.
Yeah.
That is so, and I know Best Buy does it too, but I was like, that is such a brilliant. Sunglass Hut, I think, is in almost every Macy's store. And so they've got this example of how do they carve out space for it. People, me and you, we don't care.
No.
If we want to, the only difference with some of those places that the couponing that we talked about earlier may be different, but still at the same time, we don't care if we see something and we're foot traffic, we're walking through, it's good for them.
Yep.
And so I think that is a great example of how they've survived. I know that at one point they've closed many locations.
Yep.
They have. When I moved to Atlanta, there was this massive Macy's in downtown Atlanta. That thing has been closed.
Yeah.
And then there's been several of them in close proximity to me that have been closed. I think they're smart about which ones to keep open and which ones to not keep open as they figure this whole thing out.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that they got like Apple stores, they got mini Best Buys, they got all types of stuff in there. Right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And some of them they have food courts, right? So they've done a thing where they've almost created like a mini mall inside of Macy's, right?
Oh yeah, isn't the one in Manhattan? I think they have a food court at the downstairs and one of the floors above. Yeah.
Yep. So they've done some real interesting things with their space. And then on top of that, they've done this thing where they said, all right, we want to drive more people in the store. Let's start creating events. So like Macy's will have a DJ inside the store spinning music while people are coming in to purchase stuff, right? They have mini.
I saw that once. I saw that once right next to the men's cologne, and they had this DJ right next to the men's cologne, and I was like, "Yo, this is dope." And then it drew me closer to the men's cologne. I didn't need any cologne, but I was like, "I'm getting closer to the cologne just because I'm listening to this DJ." And there were people crowding around that whole area, which people just walk through because they don't want to necessarily buy one, so they don't want to sniff it. They just keep walking as quickly as they can through the cologne. But no, there was a crowd of people around the DJ when that was going on.
And a funny thing to me is like, I go in some of these stores, right? Like I'm with my wife and we go in like a Forever 21 or like Express or something like, and they got the music and the music is jacked up, and I'm like, really? Does the music am I supposed to be in this store like dancing right now? What's going on? Why is the music so loud? And it's like annoying me, right? But when you got a live DJ, that's a little bit different, right? Because DJs, it's an art. That's an art form. That's an art form, right? And they're able to make sure that the music that they're playing and the way that they're spinning is meeting people where they're at.
Don't give away too much on DJs because they're in an upcoming episode of the Surviving Business Show. So we're going to be talking So we are going to be talking about DJs, and you, those who are listening to us, we would like you to guess which one you think they are. You think they're a business that's surviving, even though David has telegraphed the answer, or do you think they're a business that's thriving?
Well, yeah, I
Because
didn't
I think.
telegraph it until you like said that I telegraphed it.
So if you didn't hear that, you got to go back, rewind a little bit to hear David telegraphing how he felt about DJs.
But yeah, so I mean, if your shirt doesn't let you know, and your shirt is like music box, kind of lets you know where music sits for us a little bit. But but yeah, I mean, I think MACYS has done some phenomenal things. And I think that a lot of these things that we spoke about is kind of on the marketing sphere, right? It's kind of like, how do they make sure that they are staying interesting, right? They're available, and that they're meeting all of their customers where they're at, right? So if I want to buy something online, hey, if I want to get a discount on my stuff, so I don't know if you know Rakuten. I know I told you about the
I'm familiar with Rakuten.
okay,
Yeah.
when they were Ebates, I kind of liked them a lot more because the name just sounded a lot better and made more sense to me. But
I still got $20 of something I'm supposed to be able to use from Rakuten.
yeah,
From when they were Ebates. Yeah.
well, they're supposed to cut you a check and send it to you. So
Maybe
they probably
having.
they probably sent you the check and you lost it in the mail.
No. I went on at my app the other day and it still says I got this $20 of whatever credit or something I'm supposed to get.
Okay, yeah, they generally send you a check.
Oh, maybe I need to request that.
Yeah, it's like a quarterly thing. They send you a check, but MACYS is like one of the biggest people on there, right? MACYS always has discounts, right? But for Rakuten, they are the ones who. So Rakuten, their big marketing thing is to say like, okay, so you get cash back when you go through them to find discounts, right? So you go through them and it's like a little web crawler that happens, boom, boom, you go onto the site and now you're going to get cash back based on whatever you purchase on that particular site, based on whatever cash back amount that they're giving you that day. So when you click on it, it tells you like you're supposed to get 2% back, right? Or 4% back. But MACYS is one of those guys who they'll do like the double or triple or quadruple day where like you can go on. There's been times I've gone on and I get like 10% back from my purchase that I make on MACYS.com. And I'm already getting like the most ridiculous deals on MACYS, right? So I spent, the $140, but I felt like spending more money on MACYS because I know that I'm getting this additional cash back that's coming back from my Rakuten purchase.
Yeah.
And
MACYS, I think, has done a good job in a lot of respects. I think they realize that they can't handle as many stores as they used to. And I think they'll probably continue to right size it. The challenge that I see with all of that, is that at some point when you close a MACYS down from an anchor store, and this goes back to the shopping mall episode on surviving business that we hope that you go and check out, is that this is a cascade effect, right? There's an effect of all of the businesses around it.
Yep.
And all of the human beings that were working there. There's a whole lot of consequences when you close a store. So like, how can they help themselves beyond the great stuff that they're doing today? How can they figure that out? Do they do things like, do they do micro stores as opposed to full-blown department stores? What are some thoughts about how can they continue to keep their footprint out there?
It's difficult for MACYS, right? For you to think of, but what I would say is they could potentially look into fulfillment stores maybe. For instead of me getting my items delivered, maybe I can pick them up at a specific location that's located in the mall or something, right? Maybe kiosk, right? So I'm able to go to this location. I can use this kiosk to make these particular purchases. And once again, back to one of my other ideas before, I go to this kiosk, I make these purchases, right? And instead of me walking through the store and trying to figure out what I'm going to get, I come back an hour later and my thing is ready for me, right? I get like a text message that says, yeah, your package is ready and I can come back. Now, instead of them closing the store, what they've done is that they're using the store as this fulfillment center. So they just got tons and tons of stuff in there, right? So people can come in and they can initially buy. Now, the interesting thing can be, being that they have these relationships with all of these other stores and vendors, blah blah blah, they could potentially try and offer other people to have their products also available within there, right? So they can open up the suite, right? So you come to the Macy's kiosk, but then you have like your options of things that you're really looking for, right? So instead of me clicking on the Macy's button, I click on the Foot Action button because I really want to get sneakers, and then I find the particular sneakers that I want from Foot Action in my size, and then I come and I pick it up.
So let's have a little bit of a debate here. So one of the great things about Macy's was the experience of going into the store, right? Going in and you're asking for your size when you're buying something, or you're looking through racks and you find a deal, you put something up next to your body, you say, hey, this, I like this, so this matches my complexion or something. The kiosk, as much as it's a good short-term idea, does it capture the magic of what Macy's was? Does it do that appropriately? Or if it doesn't, is there a way to do that?
Yeah, I think that it's the latter part, right? How can the kiosk do that, right? Can the kiosk do that by you going through? Maybe the kiosk works differently than what I even initially thought, right? Maybe there's a multi-stage process that you could potentially have, right? So if you want to be able to try on stuff, maybe you're able to go through the thing, and then you're able to actually get all the things that you want in the different sizes that you want, and then you come back when that's ready, right? So you got your box of stuff that's ready for you to go and try on, and then you have the option when you go and try the stuff on to say like, I want this and I don't want that, right?
You
So
mean at the fulfillment center itself?
at the fulfillment center itself. So the fulfillment center could have like a two-pronged approach, right? So it could be like, what's your experience that you want? Are you just here to buy, right? Or do you want to try on and buy, right? So if you want to try on and buy, there could be like a whole different type of service system that's set up, right? So you would go in, you would pick your stuff, and it would be, associates that are there to specifically help you when you return back, right? So they fulfill the stuff, they come back, and then they're able to like give you like this maybe. And the thing is, the way I'm envisioning it, it's like this Apple Store type of event, right? Where they got like the little iPads or tablets in their hand, and they're able to like direct you, and they're like, and there's just this nice music that's going on, the DJs is going on, it's this real clean environment, and so you got your whole bunch of things that you were interested in, and then you get to see your basket of things that you're interested in, evaluate what you really want, and whatever you don't want goes back in, and they refile that stuff and put it back away.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I always think about businesses like this adopting like new technology.
Mm-hmm.
So like if a young person can figure out how to do things on the new platforms, then I think that some of these legacy companies should do the same thing. Yeah, I don't hear about them on, like you said, they got a great e-commerce site,
Mm-hmm.
but do they have a social media kind of aspect to it, to all the things you're talking about when you buy something? Do you like it? Do you connect the dots? They could make their own ecosystem with their long-standing clients of people reacting and testimonials about what they're buying and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think they should adopt the technology in a way that helps them. And so when someone goes in, like my Macy's app, which I keep all my coupons on when I go to the store, as soon as I open that app up, which is only when I get to the store, it should be like, hey, blah, 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 love this kind of thing. And you bought it 3 months ago or 6 months ago. That to me is a way of like embracing the technology in a real substantial way. Doesn't mean they got to get a big giant IT department and figure out and get people to respond to it, but it still is a way of making sure that they're adapting
I mean,
to what's going
you want to
around it.
forward think. You want to forward think this process in the technology. We go back. A lot of stuff ends up being thematic, right? But VR. Just imagine just imagine VR being adapted for that entire process that I just told you about, right? So instead of, you having to do this comeback thing, you're able to put on the headset, see what you're going to look like in all of this different stuff. So as you're clicking through the stuff, you're going through like this virtual reality thing where you're like, boom, oh, I look great in this shirt. Oh, what size fits me? You try on a large, you try on an extra large. And the VR thing is able to like actually take in your size and your measurements to make sure that you're getting the right fit.
That is awesome. So, hey, this has been a great conversation. For those of you listening to the Surviving Business Show, this is not the last time we're going to talk about MACYS, because MACYS has a special place, like I said at the beginning, in our heart. So we will probably be having a part 2 when it comes to this conversation specifically. But we wanted to make sure that we talked about the business that we think may be thriving these days. I'm under the opinion that this conversation is going to elicit a lot of debate between the two of us. And this is around home gym stuff. And I say that because it's a lot. So you think about the Pelotons, you think about Mirror, you think about the apps that people are getting to do at home work these days. It's thriving today, right? For the most part, because a lot of people who are at home because of what's going on, they are working out still. And so they have to find a way to work out inside of their home. And so that is a thing that's really happening. I will say, just to kick the conversation off, I think that Peloton has done a decent job of finding their clients. When they first came out, I hated the concept. I have to be quite frank. I was like, I get a bike with an iPad on it, and I got to pay $2,500 for the privilege of doing that. Then I got to pay $50 on top of that. And there's a whole bunch of videos on YouTube. I can just put my iPad on my bike, ride it, and then just go ahead and just act like I'm riding. Why do I need a $2,500 device to do that? And I think that Mirror is a similar thing, but I'll talk about them in a second. And but they're thriving. I think maybe I was wrong about them, because people have been buying that Peloton stuff up until recently. And I think they pivoted a little bit into not just the bike iPad thing, to other stuff. But I think that this pandemic has given them a good reason to do well for a while.
Yeah, so when we think about those 5 forces, right? Peloton is a great example of showing one of them. As they hit the internal problem where young kids started getting injured on these new treadmills that they had, right? Kids are like damn near almost dying on the treadmills, and then the CEO comes out like, "Yo, we don't need to change anything. We're all right. It's not our fault." And then he has the backpedal months later, right?
Quite frankly, I don't know, when we talked about this, whether they specifically are going to be thriving.
Yeah.
I think that they've put themselves in a bad spot, because going back to the 5 forces, they already were at a price premium.
Yep.
So I'm not their customer. Like, I'm not their customer. I just am not. I'm not going to spend $2,500 on a treadmill. I'm just not going to do it. And I'm not going to spend $50 a month to do it. So, but people were buying it because some people were their clients.
Yep.
And so I think they figured out who their clients were quite well. But I think that they're in some dire straits right now.
Yeah. Most interesting thing that I've seen related to them lately was there's this site or Instagram group that I'm part of, where they kind of like post things that are free on the sidewalk that people put out. So in Bushwick, somebody put a Peloton bike out.
Wow.
On the curb for somebody come and pick up for free. They're like, wow, that's a different kind of money, right?
I wonder though, did someone pick it up fast, or did it sit out there for a minute?
I'm sure fast. Just from the comments that were on the that were.
I don't know, man. I had to tell you, if it was sitting out there and I said to myself, wow, a $2,500 thing is sitting out there, and then my mind goes, do I want to spend $50 a month on them putting it in my house, or would I spend $50 at the gym or something? I don't know if I'd run to get the bike.
But we're talking about Brooklyn, where someone's gonna say, if it's $2,500, I can get $1,000 for it.
Yeah, Brooklyn, it's a different thing.
Yeah. The thing has value, so it's like, yeah, I'm getting this thing, you know, whether if I'm using it or not, I'm taking it, right? I know this thing has value. But yeah, so when we think about home gyms are not a new thing, right? This is not something that the pandemic brought on, right? People have been creating home gyms, you know, as long as I can remember. You know, I can remember when me and you were very young and Daddy came home with that workout set with the plastic and the concrete inside it. So, you know, like I guess in order for them to create this, they just created like plastic molds, and they poured concrete inside of it, and then they tamped down a little thing to close it off and sealed it. And
I remember that.
Those were our weights. We still have some of those weights at the parents' house too, I believe. But that was an interesting way to create weights, right?
And then there was this thing, this big giant metal coil that he used to use at his door. I don't know what he was doing with that coil. It was like some resistance coil.
Yeah, it was a resistance coil. He would open it up, and it was funny because it was like as you got older, you would still try and use it, right? And you open it up, and you know if you had any chest hairs or anything here, you get caught in the coils when you let it go, right? But
I'm laughing because that happened.
Because I mean, but this was what it was, right? It was, you know, someone came up with this great idea. You know, you can go back to the 50s where they had the leg things that all of the house moms were buying, where they open and close their legs because they were supposed to be able to get themselves real tight inside, and they were going to lose all this weight to, you know, the flubber blubbers things that were made, right? So, you know, people just saying like, let me just go and get, you know, some workout stuff because I can't make it. You know, there was a point in time where gyms were not readily accessible. So if you wanted to work out, you kind of had to figure out some type of workout thing, right? Either you had to go to a public gym where you didn't really pay for, right? Because
they deserve their own episode.
Gyms need their own episode.
They definitely do. Because I remember years ago, I went to this very nice gym here, and I won't tell you how much I paid for it, but it was ridiculous. But I loved that gym.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, to me, it was worth the amount of money I was spending in it, you know, with the lockers and the really nice showers and all of that and all of the amenities associated with that gym. But you know what I did is I started to think about all the stuff that I saw in the gym and started to replace all of those same things in my home.
Yep.
Until I got to a certain point, I was like, I got everything that I was using at the gym. Membership is done.
Yeah.
I'm not, and I worked out more at home than I did at the gym because I had to get in my car, drive, put on my stuff. It was a different experience.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's one of those things that I think that it depends on personality, right? Because for a lot of folks, they can have a home gym at home, and they'll just look at it. They'll never work out, right? Maybe when they first start to put the stuff in, they'll start working out, but then years will go by where the stuff goes untouched, right? But then,
going back to the story about the Peloton, my wife was totally like, let's go and get it. I was like, no, let's go and get it. Let's go and get it. No, she's like, oh, I'm saying to myself, I can't even get you to finish watching a freaking season of a TV show. And I think you're going to use this thing. This thing's going to be sitting around forever. And now every time I look at it, I'm going to get pissed because I'm saying to myself, this thing costs as much as 2 or 3 treadmills, regular treadmills. And why would I buy that thing? Because I know it wasn't going to get used like that.
And you got a treadmill in the house and a bike.
I've had that treadmill for about a decade.
Yeah. And how many times did she use that? That's what the real question would have been.
Yeah. I've used it more than most people in the house for sure, and I don't use treadmills a lot, and so I was saying, also, what the hell? That's just going to be some big giant thing to get me mad every time I look at it.
Yeah.
You know what kind of TV you could get for $2,500? Do you know what kind of you could get like a car? Not a great car. You can get some raggedy muffin car to do something. You know what kind of computer I could do a streaming set up a conversation with you all here if I had $2,500.
You know what kind of regular bicycle you could get for $2,500. You could get some.
Yeah,
Really
and
nice
here's the other thing. I went and bought a house that's not very far from the bike trail, and so we went and spent a lot of money on some really decent bikes because we wanted to go out to the trail. The trail is about probably less than half a mile from the house. So when she's telling me this thing about the Peloton, I'm saying to myself, "Well, damn, we got bikes."
You got bikes. And she was riding them for a while, right? She did a century, so
she did 100-mile thing. So I was saying to myself, a Peloton would not be good.
no.
But they both want, like I said, they figured it out. I was looking at their thing. I think I had their stock price shared here. I'll share it again, and it looks like they were doing quite well there for a minute.
Oh yeah, they were doing great.
The other one that they came out with, Mirror.
Mm.
Oh, I was going to say Peloton. They're at $96, so that's a pretty decent stock.
But I think that's gone down tremendously.
I don't know what it was before because I never tracked them.
Yeah, if you can look at the 1 year time frame or a 2 year time frame on that, I think that is going down a lot.
Let's see. Let's see what that looks like. Oh yeah, it looks like there's been a massive dip. So for those of you who are looking at this, they were at one point as high as 120 1 month ago.
Yeah. And I think it was. I think if you go back further, they were even higher.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah. So that's some of it's the bad news, but then some of it is one of the things that we experience in today's economy is that we see that there is a lot of hype, right? People get very excited about things nowadays and they just go to it, right? So for Peloton is a great example of that, where people they flock to this thing. Celebrities were using it. I guess I don't know why people flock to it like how they did. But when we think about the home gyms became real popular. People were like, yeah, I'm going to work out in the home. And then I think it came to the point where people started to realize, yeah, I'm not really going to work out in the home. If you don't work out and you're not an exercise person, just because you put a gym inside the house doesn't mean you're going to work out. And
that is for sure.
That's the reality of the situation. I think Daddy used to always say something that was interesting to me. Whenever we, if I would get some new exercise thing or there was something on TV about exercise, say, well, you know what? That's a nice thing for you to work exercise with, but you know what? You still got to exercise. And that really caps it in, right? So the fact of whether or not if home gyms become the stay thing is if people really stick to it and they use them. And my thought is that most people don't use their home gyms for the long haul. Right now I'm paying for, membership at the Y, where, once again, it's a wife thing where wife said, yeah, I'm going to use it. And, Ruby, when she got pregnant with Ruby, she was going pretty regularly, like doing the yoga classes and all that other stuff. But since Ruby's been gone, since Ruby's come out, she hasn't gone. But now I'm taking Ruby to like swim classes there. You get a little discount.
Well, that's valuable. That's good stuff.
Of course, the discount doesn't, it's not the same as the $90 that I spend a month on this thing. But
oh, well, that makes me feel better because that price I was talking about with that gym, I thought with this super elite gym was around that same amount.
Yeah.
Every single month I would pay that. I would be like, and I was like happy to pay it because it was a fully functional gym.
Mm-hmm.
It had anything you can conceivably think of. I even like shot a basketball, and I am the worst basketball player on the planet Earth. I just am. I don't know how to play it. One day I don't know what happened why I never learned how to play it, but it had everything. That gym was fantastic.
I could tell you what happened. You were like somewhere drawing. You were like using your creative juices to create stuff rather than
Yeah, I remember in high school I was known to be like this really great rebounder, but I couldn't dribble or I couldn't shoot. I couldn't do it because my arms were long, so I could rebound beyond what people thought I could, and because I'm not tall. And I remember that was it. That was the only thing in basketball I could ever do. I could never do anything else.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, home gyms. Yeah, I tell you that mirror one that irked me as well, and I didn't put anything associated with them. But that's the one where you see a screen of yourself, and then you're working out, looking at yourself. But I think the one thing that these both Peloton and these mirror guys are doing, which kind of connects to back what we were talking about with Macy's, is that they're building a community. So when you get on a Peloton bike or you get a Peloton treadmill and you're running, you actually see other people and you see how other people are doing and you can kind of encourage other people.
yeah,
I think that that's one of the selling propositions that you can do it with other people.
yeah.
I think that's
I don't think I was annoyed with Mirror until I found out how much it costs.
oh yeah.
When I first saw the idea, I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And then when I saw how much they were charging for it, I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" No, no way for a mirror. I mean, not that it's just a mirror. Of course, it's like this technological device or whatever. But do I really?
I did not know. I did not know until this very moment that Mirror was owned by the same people who own Lululemon.
Oh, really? That would make
Yeah,
sense.
that's smart. That person who did Lululemon is brilliant
Yeah, yeah,
because they already got a base of people.
yeah. I mean, when I really, and then the thing on top of that made me say, like, what's the big deal with this mirror thing? I'm like, Xbox Connect was able to do a better thing than this before this was even available.
Oh
Like
yeah,
10 years before this came out.
I remember that. I remember the Connect, the motion capture
Yeah, the
thing that
motion
you could.
capture thing. That was awesome. I remember I had the X Fitness thing for that, and I used to do the workouts with it. And I mean, I would get like an amazing burn.
Oh gosh, it worked out. It worked you out for real. I don't know if people remember that, but I would be like, damn, this was only 30 minutes. I would feel like gassed,
Yeah.
like for real. I was like,
I mean,
that was
the amazing thing, and I think it's a shame that uh, Xbox didn't continue to develop out the idea. But I remember doing like the running in place, like the running in place, and it's like you were really on the treadmill because you see the steps that you need to take. So you're really trying to take these steps, and you're trying to like increase your speed so that you can. It was pretty amazing. But once again, I still have the Xbox 360. I still have the Xbox Connect, and I don't use it, right? And it was a great workout. We just said it was a great workout, right? So I think that the headwind for home gyms and home gym systems, like even like this Mirror or Peloton, is just whether or not if people are really using it, right? And if it really is something that's a part of their daily life. Um, and
well, I will say this that there is fitness itself and technology is really thriving.
oh yeah,
So if you think about Fitbit,
hmm
the Apple Fitness program, which I absolutely love,
hmm
those things are really, really doing well. Because remember, Fitbit has been around for a few years now. Before that, I had a Jawbone, which was like a little thing you put on your wrist,
yeah,
and then it would track what you were doing, your steps and all that. I know you've had some of those things as
yeah. I
well.
had a Garmin.
All that stuff is working really well. People are all into knowing their fitness and doing that.
That's a whole episode on
Yeah.
Fitbit is an episode, and that's a real question for the people that are out there is is Fitbit surviving or thriving? Because that's a real question to be asked.
Yeah, I think we should maybe in our next episode we should probably just pick it up there and just talk about that directly,
Yeah.
because I would agree with you that Fitbit, just like Jawbone, because Jawbone got out of that business
hmm
because of the other ones. Um, I think that that's worthy of talking about.
Yeah.
But home gyms, if you have one out there, then work out. Like, then use it.
Use it.
And what the pandemic has taught us all, whenever you're listening to this, whether you're listening to this as we record it or you're listening to us in the listen to this in the future, is that taking care of yourself is really important when it comes to this kind of stuff. I don't know the stats, but I know that the people who've been affected the most by all of this have been people who haven't been taking care of themselves.
Yep.
You know, and so working out or whatever that means to you, we're not saying that you need to go out and run a marathon, but every single one of us can do something, I think, to take care of ourselves. Um, I think that's what that thing taught us. I know there's some stats out there. I'm not going to try to say them, but I know that most of those people, beyond the people who are older, which was the most impacted by the pandemic, but the next step is the people who weren't taking care of themselves.
Yeah. So yeah,
For whatever reason.
people who had health issues, you know,
Yeah.
that were a lot of times related to things that, eating right, and exercise could have mitigated.
Yeah. Or, I think it's a fact that being morbidly obese, I hate saying that word because that sounds morbid. It does not sound right. But morbidly obese.
Sounds like being mean. Like, you're
Yeah,
morbidly obese.
that's right. But that makes other stuff happen, right? You get other complications, whether it's hypertension or diabetes or other kinds of ailments. You even get stuff, you get physical stuff like your muscles don't work right, your back hurts. There's all kinds of things that occur when you have health challenges like that.
Yep.
So this has been another fantastic episode of the Surviving Business Show. I think that season 1 will be coming to a close here soon. Each season we do 10 episodes, then we continue to put them together and make them available for those of you who have joined us. So we hope that you give us comments, you get down with us. We love doing this show. I tell you, I love doing this with Dave. It's so much fun to talk about stuff we want to talk about anyway, but to talk about it to a group of you who are out there doing things and who are out there trying to be successful. Having a business is a fun thing to do. It's like a calling in life. In one of my other challenge where I talk about productivity, I talk about a calling, which is an external thing that happens in life, and then you got a purpose, and then you got inside of that all of that. But having a business is a calling, man. You have made a choice. You have said, I'm making a choice that my service or my product is worth people getting it. I mean, that's a big choice. That's an important thing to think about and to do. So we appreciate you for doing that. We know that when a business does well and it's got this right set of principles and it's helping its community, the whole community benefits. We do. I'm a believer in free market capitalism, with controls. I am just that believer that we do a lot of great things here, and we are living in a time, 2020. If you're listening to this episode in 2022 in the future, you're going to be like, "What are they talking about?" Because this is a beautiful time. You're going to say, you're going to be like, everything is going fantastic. What are these guys talking about? I'm listening to this whole episode. And we are there with you. We are in the future with you, and we know that the future is going to be bright for all of us.
Yep.
So, Dave, any closing remarks in this wonderful episode of Surviving Business?
I would say we covered some things, and I would say these are the thematic takeaways that I would say.
That is awesome.
Find a good bargain. I wasn't done. Find a good bargain.
Oh, I thought that was it. You're just doing a pregnant pause.
Yeah. Okay. Find a good bargain when you're shopping. Places like MACYS, you're able to get great bargains from, right? And that's the reason why they'll stick around for some time. If you get a home gym, use it.
Yeah. So I think on our next episode, we will pick up the conversation specifically around fitness. So thank you all. Continue to do well. Take care of each other. Make sure that your business is thriving. Make sure that you do something every day for that business because it's worth it and you're worth it. So take care. This is Winston and David from the